Hi everyone, Johannes Keating here. This will be the first video in a series of videos that I'm calling Recent Goodies. Goodies here means either insights or understandings or fascinating perspectives that I have gathered either from reviewing my own work or attending trainings or webinars or what have you. Okay? So, in today's video, I want to talk about, well, some of these goodies. For example, I attended a training on resistance against emotional closeness facilitated by Patricia Coughlin and Jonathan Entis. And the thing about this training, it was a good one, is that in, let's say, Patricia's cases, she showed two patients. I'd seen them before in 2014 in Syria, Virginia, but I was due for a refresher. So the thing with her cases is that they highlight the importance of appreciating complexity and tuning into the person above and beyond theoretical constructs that we have in our mind, above the roadmap. Okay, so the first patient that she showed was in cognitive perceptual disruption right out of the gate. Her mind was in a hurricane. She said it was spinning. Her speech, her thinking was clearly rather disorganized. It was in disarray. She was extremely prickly. She was defensive. She was provocative. She defended her defenses, as Patricia would say, which is, really what we refer to when we look at degrees of resistance. High resistance really means that someone is very invested in defending their defenses. And this patient, she sure was. Patricia handled it very skillfully and managed to get through to her in a matter of minutes, actually, get her anxiety into striatus signaling, and had a beautiful passage of rage and aggression. And so here, right, the take-home point is that with this particular patient, there was fragility, there was cognitive perceptual disruption, and yet she was very much invested in defending her defenses. So out with the notion, right, that someone with fragility can't be very invested in defending their defenses and be quite resistant. Okay, so there was that. And then there was the second case where the patient was clearly on the left side on the spectrum of resistance, meaning she was highly responsive. In fact, it was a one and a done thing because Patricia said that this session was it. The patient never came back. She didn't need to. Okay, and yet the patient had a very pervasive pattern of self-sabotage and self-punishment, a real masochistic streak, right? We're not used to associating that with patients on the far left. And yet, that's what we saw. And so I brought this up to Patricia, and she said that that was a great point and that it underscores the idea that we really need to focus in on the person, that it's the person above and beyond our maps, our theoretical constructs. So I thought that was super cool. Jonathan Entis, he showed a case where a patient was very self-harming, clearly quite fragile, and in one snippet that we watched, she took a big sigh, right? The idea that we can't just rely on a data point like that to assume whether or not someone is fragile or not fragile. And so that was a really lovely experience with Patricia and Jonathan. And again, part of what I took home was this underscoring of the point that the map is not the terrain. And we need to be humble and really appreciate complexity, that it's about the person above our theoretical constructs. So other goodies have come from attending a series of webinars by Dr. Osimo. They've been really inspiring. Osimo does something really, really well. And that is he doesn't allow technique or theory to get in the way of the real relationship. He's so tuned in to the patients that he works with and so careful to try to understand their first person point of view. So this thing about the real relationship and the person in fostering the authenticity that can get lost if we get really wedded to some idea, right? That we have to go for an unlocking or whatever. Okay. So part of what I really appreciate with his work is that it brings to the table another lens, right? So it's not only right? About what level of rise we're at and how close are we to an unlocking and what's the patient's capacity. I mean, that dimension is, of course, supremely important. But if we're only focused on that side of things, that can create a kind of tunnel vision that can end up eclipsing and canceling out a more authentic human to human connection. And that's what Dr. Osimo is so good at. This is where we're going for authenticity, we're going for strengthening the alliance and the openness. Even if that openness doesn't lead to a major unlocking, there's still something that seems very, very therapeutic about simply fostering that and drawing the patient out by being so tuned in and careful to try to understand them. So that's what Dr. Osimo, or that's one of the things that Dr. Osimo brings to the table from my point of view. He's so good at honoring and privileging the dimension of the real relationship and the kind of authenticity that we're going for when that's the lens we're using. So it's not only, right, it's not only about where are we at with the level of rise and where are we at in terms of an unlocking. That's important. But I think we can really become involved in a kind of tunnel vision enterprise if that's the only focus. So I have major respect and appreciation for Osimo for really underscoring that side of things and bringing this other lens to the table. So those were some of the goodies that I wanted to share with all of you this time around. Until next time, be well.